it's me, Jeff Sankoff, the TriDoc, coming to you from the studio where I make the TriDoc podcast. And I am giving you right now a brief trailer, if you will, or a teaser of what you can expect if you become a supporter on my Patreon page of the TriDoc podcast. Supporters get bonus content that comes out once every month, maybe every 2 months or so, and usually this is extended interviews with the guests that I feature on the podcast. Right now, though, you're going to get a little brief segment of the bonus interview that I had with Simon Marshall and Lesley Paterson that was featured on episode 60 of the podcast, and which has a whole bonus interview of about 20 minutes in length that is found on the Patreon website if you are a Patreon supporter. I have about a 4-minute section of that interview that gives you a little taste of what you can expect if you become a supporter, and I hope that you will enjoy it, find it intriguing, and decide that it's worth your while to sign up, become a supporter, and avail yourself to this content and the other bonus content that's on there and that will be coming. As always, you have my great indebtedness and gratitude for considering becoming a Patreon supporter, and of course for being a listener of the podcast on an ongoing basis. If you ever have questions about anything that you'd like to have me answer, if you have comments about the podcast or about the Patreon page, please don't ever hesitate to drop me a line. TRI_DOC@iCloud.com is the best way to reach me. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for considering supporting me. I hope you enjoy this little clip. I want to change sort of gears a little bit and ask specifically the both of you about what you've seen as an athlete, Lesley, and as coaches, both of you, in terms of how this pandemic has affected kind of the psyche of athletes. Not, the age groupers you're coaching as well as professionals, and then how, Simon, you've tried to, help them all cope.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, you start as an athlete's perspective.
So I think it's gone through many different phases. I think when it initially happened, everyone sort of has a good resolve and sort of, it wasn't too catastrophic. But as it's worn on, we've definitely gotten that COVID fatigue, which has sort of led to just lack of motivation and setting many goals that have fallen apart time and time again. So there's sort of disillusionment, a lot of negativity. So trying to, keep athletes motivated has been really, really challenging, because most athletes that we coach, at least 50% of them, if they don't have a race to work towards, are really struggling to motivate. And then the other 50% just love to train and love to push themselves. And I fall into the love to train and love to push myself. I don't need a race to be motivated. I mean, to get the extra level I do, I think, but not to sort of be relatively committed. So yeah, it's gone through many different phases. And, just trying to sort of, as an athlete, understand what I'm going through, and then trying to relate to my other athletes that I'm coaching and come up with good ideas to keep bolstering their motivation, excitement. And then there's just it's not just about racing or training. It's also just about the general sentiment of the world right now. And all the personal stuff that's going on, and balancing all of that too, which is huge.
Yeah,
and I think that just to underscore Leslie's point, I mean, the good news is that we even have some data now on how the pandemic has affected athletes. I mean, it's not scientifically rigorous data, but it's like Strava, for example, released their end of year report about objective swim, run, bike, and hike data, and they found the trends were remarkably consistent across nations. Once the lockdowns came, there was an initial dip, or people moved their exercise indoors. And then as soon as the lockdowns were relaxed, or people could exercise outdoors, exercise across the board, and this is not a small sample, this is 75 million athletes right across the world. There was these huge increases, threefold in many cases, and they're athletes, they're Strava. have stayed elevated even compared to 2019. So exercise levels is the year of exercise. I think that the data are suggesting people are exercising because they need to for mental health, not just because they want to for training. The psychological piece, and that's what I've spent much of this year doing with athletes, and is dealing with the uncertainty, anxiety of COVID, that COVID has brought. And then this has even followed a certain cycle, because early on in the year, in March, April, it was, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to get sick? Am I, no races on? What does it hold? And now, people who have already now been furloughed or lost their jobs, or they've kind of found their rhythm of life under COVID. But now they're dealing with the uncertainty of, vaccinations, and when will this be over? Will the race in April or May be on, or won't it be on? And so uncertainty, anxiety, in fact, uncertainty in general as a psychological state is one of the most damaging states the human brain can be put in, a human can be put in. And it's far more damaging than disappointment. There's a whole host of physical and psychological detriments to your health when you're in conditions of uncertainty. And so I think across the board, our mental health has suffered because of it. And I think athletes have really found a way to cope with that, largely through their exercise. Their training has probably become a little bit more therapeutic versus prescriptive for training. And I think we've noticed that among our athletes as well.